Okay, good morning. It's 10 o'clock on the 19th of March, 2026. So at this time, I call to order the Board of Commissioners meeting. Commissioner Rice is joining us online. And so he's scheduled to do lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning. So if you'd all rise, and the gentlemen take off your covers if you have them, and Commissioner Rice can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so we'll give him a break this morning. Is he? He's not on? Okay. So Commissioner Tarkanian, would you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we go into public comment, I did want to recognize that it appears that we have a...
What's that? You okay? You know, I've been powerlifting for 4 years now. These chairs just don't hand up.
I thought you were throwing around your county cell phone, so anyways.
No, it's the
Yeah, okay. Wow. Yeah, these are, yeah. Okay, anyways, where was I? Looking at the agenda today, we are going to not take a break for lunch, okay? We'll just power through this. So that's what we're going to do. There are some comments here on the opening page, forum restrictions and the responses to public comments. I won't read that. Most of you have already seen that, or please take note of that. But we will go into opening public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker unless additional time is granted by the board chairperson. We use timing lights to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. You will see a green light when you begin, and then a yellow light which indicates that you have 30 seconds left and should conclude your comments. Once the light turns red, we ask you to please sit down. In addition to opening public comment will also be taken on administrative agenda items, of which we have about 2 today, 2 or 3 maybe. I didn't do a real good count. Looks like 2. Okay, and if you want to speak on those, we ask you to wait until those items come before the board in order to speak to them, unless you have to go back to work, and then you're certainly welcome to speak on those items during opening public comment. Does that make sense? Fair? Is that fair to everybody? Okay. We also we have a number of liquor board items today before us. Those we do not allow public comment on those items. So if you want to talk on those items, you should do so at opening public comment. So anyways, and also I'd indicate that public comment must be limited to matters that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Board of County Commissioners. We have no control over the school board. We have no control over really the sheriff's department or the courts. So public comment must be addressed to the chairperson and not to the members of the public, so that the board may take future action on the issues that are raised by the public. So at this time, public comment will be taken on those items that, once again, are within the jurisdiction and control of the Board of County Commissioners. And when you approach the podium, we ask you to sign your name so that we can get that into the record legibly, and then state your name, and your time will begin once you start speaking. Thank you.
Good morning, Ellie Waller. With the upcoming budget meetings announced, I'm asking that you publish an overall process statement defining how budgets are finalized and when that takes place. I've had lots of questions. It is not clear to the public at large that may or may not attend these meetings. Giving an example, if a presentation is made and discussed, when is the outcome of that request finalized? When will the public training for Excella replacement program, Oracle Permitting and Licensing, or called OPAL, be available? I had a sign violation that I couldn't post. Staff was very helpful. That segues into the sign enforcement. I'm looking forward to Title 20 session that addresses sign violations. The county is failing miserably in the valley as well as Tahoe. Illegal realtor signs abound and are detracting sign pollution on fences and the roadside. The code states signage must be on contiguous property to the development or the home. A glaring example is the Preserve in Genoa, with signs on 395 down Jacks Valley Road past the development and toward the town. Signs require permits. Sometimes they go up without permits. Why aren't fines assessed immediately? Given 30 days to remedy, then 30 more days as a warning. Really? This needs to be more stringent. I've sent these for Title 20 consideration. TRPA, related township. The installation, modification, or replacement of sign requires review and approval and scenic analysis. TRPA has similar off-premise sign codes. I won't read it. And interestingly enough, the TRPA code enforcement officer has stated he wishes Douglas County would do more enforcement up there. Their code prohibits devices, strings of pennants, banners, ribbons, streamers, banners, balloons, etc. It took me 3 times to get TRPA to take the illegal Barton sign down. They may own the property. There is no project there. You get the point. Enforcement is not a priority. Next, looking forward to the Tahoe-Douglas Area Plan updates, hoping they're coming forward soon because we have so much going on in the county. Also, I'm not sure exactly when the master plan is anticipated to be held. Updates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Daria Singer, Director of Partnership, Douglas County for the record. I'm here to speak on the liquor board item today regarding the alcohol server training. Since that item was first brought to the board, our agency, along with the Sheriff's Office, has been contacted by 7 new businesses to receive training. And the individuals that have come to the training have expressed that prior to this training, they didn't feel comfortable being able to identify a fake ID, understand the law regarding voided IDs, that you can't sell to someone with a voided ID, or also feel confident in understanding that you can ask someone how old they are. So since that training, many have expressed that they feel more confident and supported in their work and that the role that they have is selling alcohol to the community. So I just want to say thank you to the board for considering this ordinance and if they're looking to pass it today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, James McCallum for the record. I recently filed for the Ranchos GID to get back on that board again, and luckily there was 3 openings and 3 candidates. Good news is I don't have to run a campaign. Bad news is for me that I've really enjoyed and worked hard on the Planning Commission, and I will be forced to give that up according to the current rules in January when I take office in the Ranchos. To me, this is kind of absurd. The Planning Commission is a 7-member board. Even if one member had a reason to recuse themselves, that's not going to affect the efficiency of the board. I could be a county commissioner and be on a GID, but I can't be a planning commissioner and be on a GID. And I've seen other people, hardworking people on the Planning Commission, have to give it up for that reason. I think this is wrong. I would hope somebody would look into it and see why this is and what we could do about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Slade. Over the past 25 plus years, I've attended hundreds and hundreds of Board of County Commissioner and Planning Commission meetings and made public comments at nearly all of them. In virtually every case, the issues that I addressed had no effect on me personally or my property. I merely spoke up for what I believed was in the overall interest of the county residents and the individual communities within the county. I strive to always do my own research and address the facts in each case. I often spoke specifically to the required findings of each issue to make sure that they met both the letter and intent of the master plan and the county code. Growth and development were issues that clearly concern me, but I never endorsed a no-growth policy, but rather sustainable growth. And I know that the majority of county voters agreed with me because they passed both the Sustainable Growth Initiative and the Growth Management Ordinance. It's also concerned about variances and special use permits, SUPs, and wanted to make sure that they met the letter and intent of the required findings. One example I'd like to share with you involves two different owners seeking the same type of SUP to enable them to create a bed and breakfast on their property. First, there was a historic Van Sickle Station Ranch on Foothill Road north of Muller, surrounded by trees with only one home within a quarter mile and only another 2 or 3 within a half mile. The owner would be there to make sure there was no adverse effect on their neighbors. There was no opposition to the request. I publicly recommended approval, and that SUP was passed unanimously. The second home was on Sierra Shadows in the Auburn Hills area. That home had been operating an illegal Airbnb on the property. They were caught, fined, and told to shut down their VHR. They appealed to the board and were denied. They came back and sought an SUP for a bed and breakfast there. There were, however, about 35 homes within a quarter mile and many more within a half a mile. All the neighbors strongly opposed the requests, citing concerns about noise, parking, and adverse effects on their quality of life and their right to the quiet enjoyment of their property. I publicly opposed that request, and it failed unanimously. The commissioners noted that VHRs were forbidden in Carson Valley, and that seemed to be an end run to try to get around that. They upheld the neighbors' concerns about their quality of life, stating that it was inappropriate location for such a use. The point here is that not all SUP requests are the same. It always depends on the circumstances, the neighborhood, and how the local community and its quality of life will be affected.
Thank you.
Jim Jackson. One of the things with the budget meetings coming up is how is our money going to be spent? Most people in the valley don't really know. They don't come to the meetings. They don't understand what goes on. They're busy in their own lives. Some of us do. I've never been to them, but this time I'm going to be. I have a few specific things I'm looking for. But one of the things that the government is set up to do at all levels is the safety and well-being of its citizens and to provide for that. You have several items or several ways of doing that. You collect money from us through taxes, all kinds of taxes. Almost everything is taxed or feed or one way or the other. So when the budget meetings happen and you're looking at how this money is going to be spent, remember, your job is to protect the citizens of the valley and to provide for our welfare, not to grow the government. The government doesn't need to grow to do this. It just needs to be efficient. And that's hard to do for politicians because you have so many different people you have to answer to. A lot of people have asked me, do they ever listen to what you say when you come down here? And I says, it's hard to tell. Sometimes I think they do, sometimes I think they don't. I had one individual that was very cynical on it and said, how much money do you donate to their campaigns? And I said, rarely do I donate. And I said, well, that'll tell you if they're going to listen or not. I tend to disagree with that. I think that's a little on the cynical side. But I will look at these budget meetings, and the people around our neighborhood have now found out I'm going to be here. So they're asking me all kinds of questions. I hope I am able to answer them after the meetings and everything. But it's going to be important to watch how the money is divvied up between the different departments. Safety is one very big one. Well-being covers a lot of areas. So I hope that the money is not going to be wasted on projects that we don't need and spend that money on projects we do need. Flood control, redoing the roads, those kinds of things that affect our well-being directly. So I hope that that happens. And not as a threat, but as a reminder, elections are coming. That is our one and only way that we can satisfy our needs on, are you doing the job for us that we've elected you to do? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment here in chambers? I'm not seeing any, so I'll bring it back to the board. And I only had one comment that I wanted to make in regards to a public comment that was made, and that was, Ms. Waller, you asked about about the update of the master plan. And although I think we had planned on trying to do that, accomplish that task in '26, as you know, we're heavily involved with the Title 20 update, and I think that's consuming all of staff's time that would be involved in the update of the master plan. So I don't know if the county manager has any better information other than the fact that I would not expect a update of the master plan until the calendar year 27. Is that? Yeah, okay, so I'm not getting any any further information on that. So I think that's what we're looking at, okay? So we can only bite off so many pieces of the apple at a time. So thank you for understanding. Okay, with that, we'll close public comment and we'll go into the approval of the agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the proposed agenda as presented. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda as proposed.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Tolbert, seconded by Commissioner Hales to approve the proposed agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I see only 3 commissioners in present right now, so it's passed by 3-0, okay? So that's where we are. Okay, now I'll go into the commissioners present for that vote were Commissioner Hales, Commissioner Tolbert, and Commissioner Gardner. Thank you. Now we'll go into the approval of the previous minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the draft minutes of February 19, 2026 regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners.
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Hales, seconded by Commissioner Tolbert. Sensing no further discussion, and I don't believe we have Commissioner Rice on board yet. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4 to 0 to 0. Okay, do you need that name on those? Okay, so that's Commissioner Hales, Commissioner Tarkanian, Commissioner Tolbert, and Commissioner Gardner voted to approve the minutes as presented. So thank you. We'll now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Douglas County Liquor Board. For those members in the audience that don't understand this process, the Board of County Commissioners also sits as the Liquor Board with the addition of the sheriff on that liquor board, so it's a 6-member board, and so we have to recess the Board of Commissioners and go into this. So we've done that, and so now we'll go into the liquor board presentations. These 3 items do not allow for public comment, so at this time, Captain Stork, I'll read that into the record. Item 7.1 for possible action discussion to approve the unrestricted mobile liquor license for Sierra Desert Spirits LLC, represented by owner and manager Nicolette Hoyt and Jonathan Hoyt. Nicolette Hoyt and Jonathan Hoyt have each signed a waiver of notice of hearing. Sierra Desert Spirits LLC is located at 663 Bowles Lane, Gardnerville, Nevada, 89460. Captain Stork.
Good morning, Captain Stork, Douglas County Sheriff's Office. For the record, this applicant has completed all the required paperwork and background checks, and the Sheriff's Office is not opposed to this applicant.
Any questions of Captain Stork? Seeing no questions of Captain Stork. And you have a number of your associates here today. Why don't we take a moment, if you don't mind, and introduce, well, let's get this motion done, and then I can do that. Okay, because we're in the middle of a motion. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. I thought I had a motion. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Tolbert to approve item 7.1, discussion to approve the unrestricted liquor license for Sierra as presented. No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. Do you need the name on that also? Okay, you're good. Okay, thank you. So, want to take a moment to, you have a number, you have like the whole sheriff's department over here today. You want to introduce them?
We have Sergeant Jacobson. We have Captain Rick Kuntz, Sergeant Lynch, and everyone knows Under Sheriff Helgus.
Okay, thank you very much and welcome to Board Chambers. So good to see you. Okay, we'll go into 7.2 for possible action discussion to approve the packaged retail liquor license for, I know I'm going to butcher this, but I'll try. Nanit Incorporated, DBA Lucky Market, represented by owners Berkram Singh Panu, Daljinder Singh Panu, and Amrinder Singh. Those three individuals have signed a waiver of notice of hearing. Lucky Market is located at 1384 U.S. Highway 395 North, Gardnerville, Nevada, 89410. Captain Stork.
Again, this applicant has completed all the required paperwork and background checks, and the Sheriff's Office is not opposed to this applicant.
My phone was talking.
I know it was very distracting.
I
thought it was mine for a second.
Okay, thank you, Captain Stork. Okay, so anyways, with that, any questions of Captain Stork? Since none, I'll entertain a motion. And it would be quite appropriate to just say, move for the approval as displayed. You don't have to try to.
Move for the approval as stated.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Tolbert, seconded by Sheriff Coverly to approve item 7.2 as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. And we'll go into item 7.3 for possible action discussion to, 1, accept the business impact statement prepared pursuant to NRS 237.080 for ordinance 2026-1664, amending Douglas County Code Title 5, Business Licenses and Regulations, Chapter 5.08, Intoxicating Liquor Sale Licenses, Section 5.08.80, License Restrictions, to add the requirement that certain employees of licensees complete alcohol seller, server, and dispenser training within 30 days of employment, and that licensees establish a continuing program of training for such employees in compliance with applicable laws related to the sale, service, and dispensing of alcohol, to include the prohibition on the sale, service, or dispensing of alcohol to persons under the age of 21 years, and 2, find that Ordinance 2026-1664 is not likely to impose a direct and significant economic burden upon a business or directly restrict the formation, operation, or expansion of business. And number 3, approve the objection process set forth within the business impact statement for any aggrieved business to object to the ordinance. This is being presented by Deputy District Attorney Zach Wadley and Sheriff Dan Coverly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Zach Wadley, Deputy District Attorney, for the record. In connection with this ordinance, the county staff went through the business impact statement process to determine the impact on businesses of the ordinance within Douglas County. As part of that process, the county staff sent out notices to all of the several hundred existing liquor license holders within the county. Also sent notice to the 2 chambers of commerce, both in Tahoe and the Valley. 2 responses were received. One of the responses identified some concerns with the frequency of the training, how it would be provided, and costs associated with that. And the other response was in favor of the training requirement and recommended that the county provide a method of free training to licensees for this purpose. So in response to that, and as noted in the business impact statement itself that was prepared and it's part of your packet, staff noted that the sheriff's office currently facilitates free training to any liquor licensee for this purpose through Partnership Douglas County. And you heard from Ms. Singer from the partnership already today talking about that process and the fact that there's been several licensees that have already gotten ahead of this a bit and engaged in training with Ms. Singer and the partnership already. So staff noted that as a mitigation of any cost impact to liquor licensees for this purpose. And the staff did also note that as far as the frequency of ongoing training for this purpose, there would be a clarification added to the ordinance that in addition to the 30-day training for any new employee, there would be annual training requirements going forward. To clarify that point and to hopefully not make it too onerous on businesses annually to provide this training. So based upon all of those circumstances and the fact that only 2 responses were received out of the several hundred that were sent to businesses, county staff concluded that there was no significant and substantial impact to businesses as a result of this ordinance. And that's presented in the statement that was provided to you. And with that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions from the board.
Thank you. Mr. Commissioners, any, well, wait a minute. Sheriff Coverly, do you have anything you wish to add to that?
No, just that the intent of this addition to the ordinance is to ensure that some type of training, and it can be a variety of ways. It can be as simple as a conversation that you cannot sell alcohol to someone who is not 21. It can be as simple as that. We provide more detailed training free through the partnership to assist in identifying the different state IDs and things of that nature to make things easier. But the intent was not to create a burden or an expense at all, but just to make it very clear, okay, which should be obvious, but now we're removing all doubt that you cannot sell alcohol to anyone who is not 21. All right, and so the argument, if there was enforcement taken, or we issued a citation, well, I didn't know. Well, now that question's been answered. You do know, or you should know, and so that's the intent. And the ultimate intent is to limit, or to eliminate underage drinking, which can lead to catastrophic results. And so that's the goal, is to not allow alcohol into the hands of those who shouldn't be drinking it and possessing it, to keep them safe, and to that's the whole intent of this. And so that's why we're doing it. And we're just adding this simple language to the ordinance to hope to assist in that. So that's our goal.
Thank you so much for that for that information. Other commissioners, do you have questions?
I do have
Yes.
one. I mean, I think this is great and well done, everyone. It's really, really good. And partnership is just critical in this effort. So thank you. I did have, I think we probably all received a letter from a member of the public, very thoughtful letter. And the one thing that, the rest of her letter is addressed, but the one question she has is, she makes the point that responsible alcohol service training also plays a critical role in addressing over-serving and recognizing when a patron has had too much to drink. That's a different issue than serving underage persons. Do you want to, would you address that? Thanks.
Sure. Zach Wadley, Deputy District Attorney, and if Sheriff Coverly wants to add to this, that's a component of training I know that's offered through the partnership. They address that issue. And certainly there can be legal liability that flows from over-serving someone who later causes an issue in the community. So it's part of that process. And again, it's offered through partnership. And Sheriff, if you have anything else you want to add to that, I defer to you.
I think DA Wadley hit it on the head. It's part of that training. There are some or can be consequences to over-serving, and we definitely don't want to do that. So any education that we can provide for that is good. But the real intent of this is to keep alcohol out of people who aren't 21 yet and shouldn't be drinking.
Thank you. Commissioner Tarkanian, anything you wanted to, Commissioner Tolbert? Okay. I don't know if Commissioner Rice has joined us or not. Is he? Okay, okay. So thank you. And yes, I agree that this ordinance change is important. Two questions. Number one, we've noticed all of our licensees so that they're very much aware of this change and the timeframes required for any new hires, right, of 30 days. Is that, as I understand this?
Zach Wadley, Deputy District Attorney. Yes, so this notice was sent out specifically to the entire mailing list of existing liquor license holders in Douglas County.
Okay.
Yes.
And the other portion, and we probably all received this communication also, but in regards to ensuring that the training is local, they don't have to go out of the county for this training. I know that was a question by a member of the public in a letter, in a communication. So I want to make sure we highlight that too online and the folks here today.
The partnership, of course, is here local and offers local training. And it's my understanding if there are 5 trainees or more, the partnership is willing to go to a place of business to offer the training at that place of business as well.
That's really nice also. Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. I know they're right on top of it, so. Anyways, you have a question? Okay.
I have a question. Because it keeps being mentioned, I feel like I should disclose that I am a member of the advisory board for Partnership Douglas County, but as such, I don't believe that affects my ability to weigh in on this particular issue.
Thank you for that disclosure. So, okay, with that, if there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance.
Well,
I
hang on.
move-
So just to clarify, what we're doing today is we're accepting the business impact statement, finding that it doesn't impose a substantial and significant impact on businesses within Douglas County, and setting forth an objection process. That's a legal process that's required under Nevada law. This will be agendized, the ordinance will be agendized for formal approval at your next meeting.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood. Thank you.
I move that we, 1, accept the business impact statement prepared pursuant to NRS 237.080 for ordinance 2026-1664, amending Douglas County Code Title 5 Business Licenses and Regulations, Chapter 5.08, Intoxicating Liquor Sale Licenses, Section 5.08.80, License Restrictions, to add the requirement that certain employees of licensees complete alcohol seller, server, and dispenser training within 30 days of employment, and that licensees establish a continuing program of training for such employees in compliance with applicable laws related to the sales, service, and dispensing of alcohol, to include the prohibition on the sales, service, or dispensing of alcohol to persons under the age of 21 years. 2, find that ordinance 2026-1664 is not likely to impose a direct and significant economic burden upon a business or directly restrict the formation, operation, or expansion of business. And 3, approve the objection process set forth within the business impact statement for any aggrieved business to object to the ordinance.
I get the hard part. Second?
Motion by Commissioner Hales, seconded by Commissioner Tarkanian to approve item 7.3 as stated. Any additional questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0-0. Right? Okay. Okay, so with that, that concludes the liquor board items. So at this time, I will adjourn as the Douglas County Liquor Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. Well, next item is the consent calendar. And is there any commissioners who wish to remove anything off the consent calendar to the admin? Seeing none? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar, items A through M as presented.
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as is.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Tarkanian, seconded by Commissioner Tolbert to approve the consent calendar, items A through M as presented. Since no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. We'll now go into the administrative agenda, and item number 11 for possible action. Presentation, number 1 is presentation by Chris Garner, hydrologist, U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, Nevada Water Science Center on USGS modeling, simulation studies evaluating the effects of groundwater management options on water resources in the Carson Valley, and 2, discussion to approve an extension of time for completion of U.S. Geological Survey, USGS agreement 21ZJJFA00133 and authorize the county manager to sign the amended agreement. The time extension will facilitate USGS' ability to obtain additional matching funds at no cost to the county during the peer review process required to finalize and publish the study report. The amendment will extend the program end date from June 30th, 2026 to June 30th, 2027, and this is being presented by our Public Works Director, Phil Richter.
Commissioners, good morning. Phil Ritter, Director of Public Works, for the record. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Chris to Garner with the USGS to do the update on the study and the modeling and stuff like that. And then when we get into the second part of this, which is the contract extension, Jenna Huntington with the USGS, she's the chief of the Hydraulic Studies Division, is also here, and she can speak to that if the board has any questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Good morning. Can you hear me? So today we're going to talk about results from work that we've done with a model of Carson Valley that was funded by the county. The work looked at...
I think we need you to lean further into the microphone so we can get you on the record here properly. Thank you.
How about that? The work that we did looked at the effects of water management scenarios on water levels and stream flow in Carson Valley in response to pumping scenarios in the future. So the situation is more or less increasing population and increased groundwater pumping that's associated with that population growth. So what we saw in the early 2000s was a rapid growth in Carson Valley. Pumping more than tripled. Subsequently, future growth was capped at 2% per year. And sort of the question, that last bullet, it might be better phrased as how much is pumping impacting groundwater levels. The motivation for the work is balancing water supply and demand, managing the water resources that we have in Carson Valley for a sustainable future. Groundwater that's pumped ultimately comes from either groundwater storage itself, or it can come from stream flow capture, basically. And stream flow capture it can't really be measured. It's challenging to estimate, and so that's where the utility of computer models comes in to sort of give an assessment of the effect of pumping on stream flow. So the purpose is we have a model from prior work. There's been several models before that, but we have a model that was published of Carson Valley. And the goal is more or less, if pumping is known in the future, can we assess the effects of pumping on stream flow and water levels? And sort of an aside is to understand the effect of the operational framework of the scenarios that we simulated. Two aspects related to that are the Minden intertie, where water is pumped in Minden and then distributed out to other municipalities in the valley, and also the Quill water treatment plant. I'll get into more detail regarding those in a few slides. So the components of the scenarios are, well, let's just define a scenario first. So a scenario is a model run, so you might have one run that has a certain setup with parameters, input data, and any additional model run can be a scenario if you just change one aspect of the model and then run a second model run that compare the two. So that's kind of what a scenario is. This scenario is really just focused in on municipal pumping into the future. And these estimates for anticipated pumping were provided by the major municipalities in the valley, and there are 5 of them. The projections include 46 wells, and those were provided to us by Loomis and Associates. Within the scenarios that we're going to talk about, we decided to use historical inflow, and that inflow was estimated as the mean over the past 30 years. And in the scenarios, we're just repeating that historical inflow each year. Precipitation and water imports also get repeated into the future for the scenarios.
Can I stop you here?
Sure.
For a minute, and my other commissioners, feel free to, as you have questions arise, I think it's just better to try to answer those questions
Absolutely.
as we move through this. So I had one particular question. You said that all we're looking at, did you say that this study is only looking at municipal well pumping and not singular and the effects on the water, on the aquifer from individuals who own property and pump from their own individual wells? Because that has a tremendous impact as well.
Absolutely. I may have not articulated that very well. The model has quite a bit of detail in all aspects in terms of types of pumping, water rights. The decree is incorporated in the model. What I meant was that we're going to present 2 model runs. One we're going to call the baseline, and the other one we're going to call the scenario. And the only difference between the 2 model runs is increased municipal pumping in the scenario. Does that help?
It does, and I just hope you're going to address the fact that we're hearing from a great many of our residents on the east side of our county that they're expending tremendous amounts of money drilling extending their own individual wells to draw water out of the aquifer. So those are certainly concerns of the board.
Absolutely. This slide, it just shows the projected pumping by municipality. So in the map on the right are the 46 wells that I talked about. They're colored by purveyor. And then on the left, if you total up the pumping in each of the wells by color or by municipality, effectively, you get the traces on the left, which is the projected groundwater pumping in acre feet per year for each purveyor. One thing I want to highlight that relates back to the operational aspects of the scenario. So we see that the Douglas County pumping is kind of going along up until around 2035, and then it jumps, then it continues on kind of with a linear increase. And at the same time, Minden's pumping is decreasing. And so those 2 jumps are related. and the water treatment plant, or is that what it is coming online in 2035, or?
Phil Richter, Director of Public Works. This comes back to, this is related to a study or to information and planning on our part from our municipality in terms of potential for arsenic treatment and the need to be able to treat water on the east side in the future. So it's projected out. So it's a neutral effect. I mean, essentially, we could look at it and say Minden was going to continue pumping at the same rate that they are, or at the increased rate. We did a shift and said that if we're bringing on if we need in the future arsenic treatment, that we would probably be shifting some production to our own municipal wells and not from Minden's in terms of the supply to the East Valley. So it is a direct one-for-one relationship there. So in terms of the total draw from the aquifer, it doesn't really affect it, and that's why you see one step up and one decrease.
So if we total the pumping for each purveyor in the previous slide with the 5 colored lines, we get the total pumping per water year that's shown with the orange dotted line that I have labeled scenario. So then this is kind of getting to your question, Commissioner. This plot really effectively shows the only difference between these 2 model runs that we did. So one has the projected pumping into the future in the scenario. In the baseline, we lock the pumping at the 2020 values and then just hold that constant into the future. So this scenario it's really just any effects that we see between the 2 model runs is directly associated with that difference in pumping. So that's kind of the layout of the scenario.
Can I ask you to go back to, I think it's the 3rd slide. Oh, that one right there, I'm sorry. One more. Phil Richter, Director of Public Works, for the record. In terms of the question that Commissioner Gardner is asking, I think this slide may help define this a little bit better too in terms of what we're dealing with. The top black line is the cumulative total of all forms of pumping that are in essentially affecting the aquifer. It is the orange line at the bottom, which is other. I think that might be. I'm not even sure exactly what that constitutes, but the domestic pumping is the private individual wells. That's the purple line at the bottom. The blue line is the municipal pumping, and the green line is the irrigation, which is the agricultural use. So in the grand scheme of things, agricultural use and municipal pumping are the 2 dominant consumers of water. So in terms of the model run itself, when looking at variables, this analysis was looking at municipal impacts, and it assumes that the agricultural trends and the domestic trends would remain sort of constant would remain the way they are on this model projection, so that they weren't being deviated from, they were just being held sort of as a constant in the equation.
So I understand that this is what is anticipated in regards to future withdrawal of water out of our aquifer. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay. And of course, what our residents are concerned about is not about the groundwater pumpage, but how far it's taking to get into the aquifer in order to accommodate the continual flow. So that's, I mean.
And that's part of what this model is doing is looking at those effects, and Chris will get into that in a later slide.
This slide's just trying to give you a little bit of detail about what the model that we use to do these simulations and what some important aspects of it. It's basically building off of work that was done by Kit Lassen and others in 2021. That model is an integrated ModSim ModFlow model. He simulated 1980 to 2015 in the model publication. We updated the model to run forward a 40-year historical period, so 1980 to 2020. So we updated the ending point of the historical period from 15 to 2020. And then the model is extended with this 30-year projection period that runs from 2021 to 2050. A couple important things about the models. ModSim determines, it's a water allocation model, and so it determines how surface water is distributed according to the Alpine Decree. ModFlow, it simulates the groundwater physics, so evapotranspiration, water level fluctuations, all of the physical aspects of the groundwater system. And an important part of ModSim is that irrigation pumping is calculated based on the crop demand and how much water the demand gets. So how much does the field get? Does it get enough? Doesn't get enough? If it has more water rights available to pump, it will pump on irrigation pumping. Okay, we're going to jump into the results now. This plot is showing the change in stream flow at Carson City in acre feet per water year, and it's the scenario minus the baseline. So if the bar is on the top of the 0 line, it means there was more flow at the gauge, and if it's below the 0 line, it means there was less flow. And so what we see in this first 17-year period, there's some a lot of up and down, where we have less flow, more flow, less flow, more flow. And then in the rest of the simulation, we see continuous drops in flow at Carson City in the scenario. So in the scenario where there was more pumping, eventually we start to tend towards this decline in flow at the gauge. I want to point out that these numbers are very small. If you take the last bar there, it's approximately 75 acre feet for water year 2050. If you translate that to CFS, it's 0.1 CFS. And the average annual flow at Carson City is 400 CFS. So just trying to give context.
How many hundred?
400.
400 CFS.
Just trying to give context to those numbers. I will get to more implications and interpretation of this slide later, but if you have questions at this point, feel free to
So if
ask.
this were on the 400 CFS, if this chart were built on the basis of 400 CFS, the graph would be teeny tiny.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Anything further?
Phil Ritker, Director of Public Works, for the record. In case there's questions about the this model and looking at the gauge at Carson City, it is essentially the reason they look at the gauge at Carson City is it captures 100% of the flow that comes from the Alpine Decree into the Carson Valley before it leaves the Carson Valley into the what's considered the middle section of the Carson River. So again, we look at that gauge so that it captures 100% of all of the interactions or interflows within the valley itself.
Okay, I'm gonna do my best to work through this one slowly so we can get all the details in. The slide is showing the equivalent of the last slide, except we're looking spatially at the difference in water table elevation in the valley, basically. And if the colored portion of the map in the back is red, it means the water table went down with the increased pumping. And if it's blue, it means it went up. Before I go forward, something I neglected to mention earlier, with respect to the pumping projections is that some of the 46 wells actually go down in pumping, and some of them go up. So we have wells that are increased pumping and wells that are decreasing in pumping. So if we go to the map key before we walk through any of the other details, the solid black dots show where the scenario was not equal to the baseline. So that would be those wells that either went up or down in the amount that they pumped. And then the hollow circles, I don't know if you can see them, those are wells that where the scenario was equal to the baseline. So those wells had an amount of pumping, and in both of the model runs it was the same into the future. And then the two triangles in the legend, one's a downward triangle, one's an upward triangle. So the orange downward triangle shows the wells where pumping decreased, and the sort of cyan triangle pointed upward shows the wells that were increasing in pumping. And it's, if you look at, for example, around Minden where the orange triangles went down, it might be difficult for you to see, but there's an area of where the water table went up. And if you look down around Gardnerville Rancheros, there's an area where water levels went down. And so this is just showing that, you know, the pumping, whether it went up or down, is related to the change in water levels. Did it go up? Did it go down? More or less.
I guess I'm a little bit confused about that, quite frankly, is, you know, I mean, where I'm hearing wells having issues are exactly right there in the Gardnerville Ranchos, in the Ruinstrath area, just to the east of that map, and then also in the Johnson Lane area, where it shows the red. Okay, and yet the wells themselves, the arrows are up, so that means that pumping is increased. So I'm not. Can you let me? Can you wrap my head around that a little bit more so I understand that?
Sure. Can I clarify that this is where water levels are currently declining? And is that what you said? And
they're declining, but the wells themselves are having to work harder or working or actually drawing more water. Is that?
Well, what this is showing in the scenario, the triangles, those blue triangles, there were two model runs, and sorry, I skipped this one part, and it's pretty critical for understanding this. So we have two runs, and the models end in 2050. And in the spring of 2050, we get the ending water table elevation for the baseline with the constant pumping, and then we get the ending water table elevation for the scenario with increased pumping. And then we difference those two. So the scenario minus the baseline shows that water levels dropped in the Gardnerville Rancheros area, and this is in fact where the pumping was higher in the scenario than in the baseline. So you would expect if pumping was greater, water levels would drop or decline.
So, and certainly in the Gardnerville Ranchos, that is becoming a huge concern, and this is a 2050 model, okay, as I understand it. So, and there is proposed growth or a receiving area in that area. Do we have any estimation on what that aquifer and certainly in the ranchos, what it can handle in regards to growth based on this water that's available?
There could potentially be information from these runs that could inform that, but I can't really, I would be speculating at this point.
Phil Whitaker, Director of Public Works, for the record. Commissioners, I think one of the things you need to understand in this, in terms of when he says that these, like I'll talk about the Gardnerville Ranchos area in particular, where the model has increased pumping. That increased pumping is based on the municipality of that water municipality, meaning the Gardnerville Ranchos municipality, forecasting that they would be consuming more water into the future. It's not, the model The model doesn't say, oh, we're going to pump out of this one little region. It's the municipality said, in 2050, our projections are we need to pump more. So this model is now informing from a policy or from a planning standpoint. This model helps inform them that if they, that they may want to look at either moving wells or having additional wells by 2050 or distributing the production across their area, because it's a very localized. I mean, you've got one well sort of in the center there where the deep red is, which is where you see the decline of up to 18 feet. Now, I don't know what the water table is there or what the depth. I'm sure their wells are much deeper than that, but on a large scale, that's while it says 18, it's a fairly small. I think Chris mentioned that across the board throughout the valley, it's what, about a 4 foot? Or what did you say?
Correct. Yeah, I that's what I have there. So it's a little hard to see the colors, but more or less, if you look at the colors closely, you could see that overall, most of the declines are less than 4 feet. And then I did the numbers on water level declines that are greater than 1 foot. So, and I found that number was just under 8% of the valley area is affected by water level declines greater than -1. So it's not that big of a fraction.
Yeah, I think in simple terms is the Gardnerville Ranchos has already done their own water study, to my understanding, and basically this is somewhat confirming exactly what they have already discovered, and is that their needs for water are going to increase as the water level is going down. So, and so by 2050 they may be in a real problem area. Yeah. I think that's what they've expressed to us anyways.
I think that's accurate. I don't know their study that well. Eric might know it better than I do, but I think that does kind of align with what they found. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm looking at, I'd like to get more information about two specific areas, Johnson Lane and Ruinstrath. So as I look at this, I don't see any information about the Johnson Lane area.
So there, Director of Public Works, Phil Ritker, for the record. No, there are no municipal wells out there. So the bottom line is there was a moratorium on wells and water usage in the Johnson Lane area by the state engineer, I think in the 80s, which has been in effect for quite some time. So it's one of the reasons that the municipal system exists out there, at least in for certain areas. Any new subdivision in that area, out in that area, is required to be on a municipal system because there is no water imports into it. You can't bring water rights into that area to drill wells or to do anything else. It has to be brought in municipally. But you'll notice there are no municipal wells in that area, which is why it doesn't show up in this model, because we're not pumping from there. So the municipal water system is actually delivering water to that area, essentially to offset the domestic use that's being generated by the individual homeowners. So really the solution to the Johnson Lane area would be to figure out how to fund expansion of a municipal system, not to continue drilling private wells.
Just to drill the point home, this study really doesn't provide any information for private well owners in Johnson Lane. Is that accurate?
Well, these levels, these water levels, the domestic wells, every domestic well is in the model, and all other wells, irrigation wells. I mean, you could overlay them in this map and determine whether those wells overlap with these different declines in the water table. That would be the only way the only information we could really get at it is we could grab each domestic well and tell you for this scenario in the future how much the water levels went down below each well.
But that's not part of this at this point.
No, it isn't in the scope to do that.
Because we, as Commissioner Gardner said, we do get private well owners from Johnson Lane telling us that they've had to drill deeper or make adjustments because they've had problems.
Phil Ritker, Director of Public Works. I mean, just looking at this one chart though, and Ruhenstroth is not really on this map per se, but if you look at the Johnson Lane area, at least this model prediction would, one of the things I think you could say from this model is that the municipal pumping of water will, while there is a decline up in the airport region where you see that one well, that's a county well, it does not extend very far into the Johnson Lane area. So I mean, I don't think it would have any impact on the municipal pumping there would not impact the Johnson Lane area per se, according to this model.
So the last slide summarizes what we found. A lot of it is repeating what I just told you, but the reductions in stream flow at Carson City gauge are less than 0.1%, much less than 0.1% of the average annual stream flow at Carson City. So they're quite small over at the end of the period in 2050, basically. I'm basing that number on that last bar in the bar plot of stream flow change that I showed. Declines in the water table are less than 4 feet, and except in the vicinity of Gardenville Ranchos, where we had larger declines up to 18 feet. But those are very localized, like one model cell in the model. So, and then this is a tricky one here, so I'm going to do my best. So if we focus on that last bar, let's just go back to this plot. If we focus on that last bar in 2050, the minus 75 acre feet, that value and sort of the slope of those bars are steadily decreasing, right? Indicating more and more reduction in stream flow over time. So what that shows at the end of that simulation, it tells us that the system hasn't stabilized under the simulated conditions to the change in pumping between the two scenarios. Water levels would likely continue to decline beyond 2050, and then of course further reductions in stream flow are likely to occur beyond 2050 if we continued to run the model out past 2050, but we didn't do that. So it's kind of just getting at equilibrium. The model didn't equilibrate to the change in pumping. And then, of course, we're working really hard analyzing the model results and working hard to get the report completed as soon as possible.
And that's your summary, so, okay. I know commissioners have questions. Commissioner Hales, did you have any additional questions? No, Commissioner Tolbert?
So I guess for me, I'm looking at this and with the other things that we've seen, this is just really one specific target of what we're looking at on this, because when you say that there's, reductions in stream flow are less than 0.1% of the average, that's true, but the fact is that the stream flow is coming earlier and earlier, so we're not getting the replenishment that we typically have, so that's not addressed in this, and we also don't have the domestic wells in this. So where is the evaluation of the aquifer? This is an evaluation of the municipal wells, which is just one little piece of the overall picture. I mean, I guess, Mike, I'm looking at this going, what's the point? Because it doesn't really tell us anything. We're looking for what's the results of this are. And without all the other pieces combined, I mean, how do we get to a clear picture of what our aquifer looks like, what our demands are, what's happening over time? Because we know that there's more than one thing, and all of these little, looking at, specifically this pumping, and then specifically over here pumping, and then over just groundwater over here, all these little pieces that we've seen. I still don't have a clear understanding. I think I do, but I don't think I have anything that I can articulate back to what is really going on with our aquifer. So I guess my question is not really a critique of what's here, but of where is there somewhere that we can wrap our hands around or show what is really going on with our aquifer that really is pulling all the information that we have available to us. Because I know, a year ago we were adding domestic wells to that people were providing information on their depths so that we can add that into the data set. So I guess I'm just wondering where is this overarching, I understood years ago that we were trying to get the study done of what the aquifer actually is. And I guess I'm just looking for that because this to me doesn't help me with understanding what's really going on other than, you can see where we're pulling a large amount for our municipal areas. So, I mean, that's just my comment on where we are, but I'd like to see something that actually involves all these pieces and shows different things so we can really get a real grasp of what's going on with the water situation.
Okay, another messenger, so, yeah.
I would say that that's a valid point. I wouldn't say that it doesn't tell us anything, and I would say it's a little bit unrealistic to expect that it would tell us everything. It's all model. There's a saying. It's models are representations of reality, not perfect reality. Certainly, we could have included the aspects in some manner that you referenced, but that wasn't. We didn't develop. This was part of a 30-year water management plan. That was written to go to FEMA. Essentially, we didn't develop the projections. We just completed the scope as it was defined.
Is this on? My name's Jenna Huntington with the USGS.
We need you to speak closer into the microphone, please.
Thank you. My name's Jenna Huntington with the USGS. Just to add a comment to that, I understand your concern of the domestic wells, and they are included in the model, but I just want to bring it back to the scope of this project that we were asked to do. And although all the inputs and the stresses on the system are included, we were only requested to evaluate what the simulated municipal pumping would do. So I think what you're getting at is a question that we are not able to answer with the simulation that we currently have.
So, okay, to that end, you said it says analysis of model results on ongoing preparation for the final report. Is there more of a final report that's coming to us at a later date, or is this the final report pending peer review that you've asked for an extension on?
The results that you were presented today are what will be included in this report, so it's just our requirement to go through finishing writing the report and putting it through peer review.
I had one question. So this comes from our request 3-4 years ago to do the water study, correct?
So yes, and actually, I'm going to get into that. The report was the item actually came before this board. Okay, and I hope you don't, please understand this is not personal. Okay, and I realize that I'm shooting the messenger. Okay, so please don't take it personal. I've already warned Mr. Richter about that. But this report was approved on February 18th of 2021. Here we are in March 19th of 2026. So actually 5 years ago.
Jumped away from my question.
Okay.
Just go back. No, I'm just trying to get some clarification, because when I was taking that vote, I was under the impression we were going to get a study on all of the water, both municipal and well waters. Did we only contract out to do the municipal? We didn't contract out to do the well waters?
Sorry, Commissioner Tarkanian and Jennifer Davidson, County Manager, for the record. No, we did include domestic wells in this, and I think that question's been answered several times, actually. The charts that they have created in here don't show what's going on with the domestic well data. That was incorporated as part of the model, I believe. And it's the domestic well data from the domestic wells that we're voluntarily reporting. So not every domestic well was being measured or monitored. It's the data that we had access to. And
Okay. So then I'm not understanding what you were saying, that this was not part of the contract that we had with you to do domestic well testing? I thought that's what you just stated.
Well, the domestic wells are included as a stress in the system. They are all in there, but the main purpose was to single out municipal pumping and see what the effect of increased municipal pumping would be. So, like we mentioned, the stream flow, the evapotranspiration, all the domestic pumping, the irrigation pumping, all of that's in there, but it's being held constant. So the only difference we're looking at is that municipal.
I don't know.
Phil Ritker, Director of Public Works, for the record. Let me help. Maybe I can help clarify this. What we did is we looked at the population growth. I mean, one of the ways to consider this is we looked at population growth in the valley and said, we're going to make the assumption for right now that that's being served by the municipals, and the municipal entities were looking at what their increased pumpage would be to supply that growth. The equivalent could be, we could have said, well, gee, the municipality we're going to tell you that, no, you only get half the growth, the other half is going to be domestic wells. The effect on we would have spread out wells across the area, but the total volume of water coming out of the aquifer would have essentially been the same. It's just, you'd be looking at where it's coming from, either point sources from municipal or a myriad of point locations across the valley. So it's not that the aquifer, so the point is the stress on the system, meaning the pumpage total, includes the domestic wells as they currently exist and with small increases. But it really looked at saying, if growth in the valley is forced to be on municipal systems and municipal is handling that, here's the impact to the aquifer.
My recollection of the concerns that we had on the board were complaints from people in these different areas that Chairman Gardner mentioned, Johnson Lane, Rue, and Throth, where they said their wells were drying up and they had to go deeper and deeper and deeper. It's my understanding that they're not taking water from the same aquifer as Minden's. The Minden aquifer, my understanding is there's a lot of it there and it's been replenishing itself, but it's not as much in areas where the wells are drying up. They're two different things. Am I wrong on this? Because that's the understanding I've had. And if I'm not wrong on it, I certainly thought we were going to get an answer to these people whose wells are drying up and having to go deeper and deeper to give them an idea where we're headed. Is that your understanding?
Absolutely. Yes, of course. There's 3 members on this board, okay, and I'm going to use this term, okay, that are collecting dust on this report, okay. This report was commissioned in, like I said, February 18th of 2021, through the 23-24 fiscal year. Here we are going into the 26th. We're in the 26-27 fiscal year, so it's basically three years late. Okay, we were hoping certainly with the approval of this report that we would have something come back to this board 3 years ago, right? And so it was no small amount of money that we put into that. So. And I can the reason I supported doing this to begin with, okay, we did 2, okay, we did water quantity and water quality. Our report from Dr. Naranjo came back a couple of years ago on the quality, and yet we keep getting delays on this particular report, which is concerning, that we can't address the answers, the questions of our constituents, and yes, we do understand that municipal wells will affect, as it draws down the aquifer, will affect the individual personal set wells, and they're going to have to go deeper. So we were concerned about that, and there was a tremendous amount of push on this board to and brought forward by commissioners at the time that perhaps we should impose a moratorium on all growth in the county. I don't know if you remember that, Mr. Gardner, but a moratorium on growth until we could get this study, and I was kind of confident that we would have that report a couple of years ago, so that I wasn't really in favor of a moratorium, but and that's part of the reason for the Sustainable Growth Initiative back in 2007 is to make sure that we had enough water to sustain any growth that we incurred, and so. We've been fortunate, as you know, that we haven't had a tremendous amount of growth in the county to draw down that municipal use. And the growth that is planned on the books right now, about 5,000 homes, will be all on municipal water, as I understand it, not on the only ones that we really have that are on domestic wells are the new construction of single homes that are going around all over the valley. But so that's my concerns is I think and I expressed this to Mr. Richter earlier this week, is that I'm not sure that I would have voted to approve this study if I realized it was going to take 6 years to come forward with something that we can deliver to our residents as a note. We do know that we're drilling deeper certainly in the Johnson Lane area in domestic wells and in the Ruinstraat area. And of course, the concern there, and as you know it, and then we get into the water quality issue, right? Because as I understand it, the deeper you drill a well, the greater chance you have of picking up heavy metals, arsenic, and that type of thing. So that becomes a public safety concern for us, okay? So I don't have really. These are all comments. They're not questions. So commissioners.
So that helped. Thank you, Mr. Richter. Can you go back to the map? So if I'm understanding this correctly, so you're saying that the idea here was that we're taking all the proposed growth over those years, and by spring of 2050, when we had our X% of growth throughout time, so let's say we develop out in the Johnson Lane area, that water that's going to be provided is mostly going to be coming from that well that you see there by the airport, right? And so by building out those, say, 25 homes on Stephanie that are coming, the rest of Bramwell Estates, all those extra pieces, that development and that extra use of water from now until 2050 is not going to affect, or in the model is not affecting the water level of those existing, or the well depth of those existing wells in that area, right? Is that what I can extrapolate from what I'm seeing of the model there? Because we're at what, 3 feet there, or minus 3 to up to 0 as you're heading north, right? So we're pulling from over here, so that's the straw and the Slurpee sucking that up, and then it's replenishing by the time it gets up to the Johnson Lane area, right? So if I'm looking at that right, that's the value of what. So I'm like full circle now.
That's accurate.
Chairman, if I may. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Jennifer Davidson, County Manager, for the record. So I think sometimes when we're this far out from a result, we lose sight of why we started on this journey to begin with. So I pulled up the packet materials and the background information that was provided to the County Commission in 2021 when we authorized this study initially. And our purpose, what was really driving this conversation at that time, was that the state legislature had recently enacted an act relating to land use planning, requiring with limited exception the governing body of a county or a city to develop and maintain a water resource plan, authorizing grants of money to certain governing bodies for the development and maintenance of a water resource plan, and providing other matters properly related thereto. We really wanted, as a basis, and why we narrowed in on municipal pumping, is because we wanted to be able to take this data to help us inform the plan that we are required to develop at the state legislature. What kind of policy decisions we should bring from back to the county commission relative to how we are being proper stewards of water resources in our county and ensuring balancing the needs of our future needs against what would be demands on the environment. And so this was the start of that journey and the purpose of that journey. And I hear the board now saying that you wish you had some additional information regarding domestic wells. I think this journey is going to have to continue, right? Whether or not it's with USGS or we look at other opportunities to continue to analyze this data, this is probably step one in writing that water resource plan. The more data we have, the better and more informed our decisions will be. This can't be all the pieces of the puzzle that you're asking for, and I hear you asking for more. So let's continue the conversation. I think it will be good for us to discuss this as part of our strategic plan. I appreciate the work that USGS has done. I thank them for their presentation today. I think a little bit of the angst we're sending your direction is that we just want to be proper stewards of our resources, and thank you for partnering with us on this.
Thank you for that. And I do want to apologize for the tardiness of this report. It was definitely not our intention to have it take this long. I had two different people that were working that picked this up from the beginning that left the USGS to take other opportunities. So the timeline got pushed backwards. And when Chris came on board with the USGS 2 years ago, as his brand new supervisor, I said, you will work on this model and nothing else. So he has been dedicated the last 2 years to this model. And so we are riding him pretty hard to get this report to you as soon as possible. So I do apologize for that. And that's why we are asking for the extension of time and no additional money from you, so that we have some of our matching federal funds that we can put to cover Chris's time to get this model and the report through the review process and published for you.
Okay, can I just a little bit further, so really to put this in a smaller nutshell, this is the human effect of the aquifer of growth, right? What we're missing, what I guess I was talking about before, is what Mr. James brought to us the previous meeting, was that Mother Nature is doing far more to our water, our aquifer, than we are. I guess that's kind of what I'm seeing here, and I believe that's what they produced in some of theirs, that the Ranchos wells were going to be at capacity in 2053 or whatever in their last report. So I guess basically this is the effect of development on the aquifer, right, and not Mother Nature, right? That's what you're showing?
That's correct. And I want to point out that I've taken notes on your comments. In some cases, there's a lot of information in the 2 runs that we did that might potentially inform some of these comments. And I don't know that we're necessarily precluded from having that in the report, but we'd need to discuss internally with our team.
Phil Ritker, Director of Public Works, for the record. One other comment I wanted to make as well is that this model, I don't know if you recall, but in Ed James's presentation in the Carson Water Subconservancy District, this model actually helps inform some of their information. So it's not that these things are independent, as well as the Desert Research Institute's work down in the Gardnerville Ranches, when they looked specifically at the wells and fracture lines and the information coming out of there, also plays into these modeling and the validation of these models. So the 3 real big agencies in this area that are sort of cooperatively working to understand our aquifer are those 2, the USGS, Desert Research Institute, and then the CWSD. So they're all reliant upon each other for coordination of the data and then calibration of these models and the like. The last comment I'd like to make is with regards to the legislative requirement for the water resource plan. We are, in addition to this study, we are actively working on that right now in my office in conjunction with Desert Research Institute. So they're actually drafting elements of that report or that study that has to be submitted to the state, and those we'll be bringing those forward both to public workshops and then to this board at a later date. It's not prepared; they're not in the position to do that today, but that is in the works as well.
Thank you.
Could
Me-
I clarify one of the comments? Or
Sure.
I think all of you kind of had the comment relative to the other wells that are not shown in this map. It sounds like what you're looking for might be how much have water levels fallen historically below each of these wells, for example, the domestics, and then how much are they going to fall in the future? Is that kind of what the comment is about?
Can I take a shot at this? I think what we would really like to know is, as we go through this next 30-year, 25-year period to 2050, is that I think our residents that are on domestic wells are kind of curious about the drawdown of the aquifer and anticipating how much further they're going to have to go into the aquifer on their personal properties to get sustainable water for themselves. That is a huge concern of our residents in Ruinsroth, Johnson Lane, East Valley, understandably, I think, right?
Absolutely. And I think that is something with the 2 runs that we have, we can get at that in the report, at least at some level. We can have drawdown from each of these simulations from the beginning of 1980 all the way to 2050. And then we could make a map similar to this. In that case, you would see changes almost everywhere in both of the scenarios, and then we could potentially compare those two. But I don't. Does that sound like it would get more at what the comment is in regards to?
It's
Yes.
good we had this conversation. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I think we've exhausted this portion of it, but we do need to go to public comment because this is an actionable item. So at this time, we'll entertain public comment. The public, Chris and the other lady, the public may bring up questions that we will then, we'll take note of, and then once public comment is over, we'll try to address those questions, if that's okay, rather than having you address the individual, because they're limited in time. So, okay? So we'll try to track those questions that they might ask, and then you can answer them afterwards. Thank you.
Jim Jackson, Johnson Lane resident. Looking at all of this, I'm not going to be as gentle as you've been. Considered a waste of time. It doesn't tell us anything that we didn't already know from the last time the USGS was here. I sat in on that meeting, and afterwards I went out and I talked to the individual that gave the presentation, because he was talking a lot about water quality and how much the aquifers were moving up and down and how the aquifers were being recharged. One of our concerns, as you all know very well, is the well at Painted Rock Mine. They shut down the municipal mine or well because they'd used so much water last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that well was closed because the state said we'd pulled too much water out of it. And it was because they were pulling all that water to water the road and do whatever they were doing and everything. So the question that I had asked him at the end of that meeting was, what about the quality of water? How does that well affect that? And he said the way that the aquifer is recharged is by the water coming down from the pine nuts. And it will be going through that area. And basically, the well that they have put in out there is going to divert that flow into the aquifer. And so it won't flush the aquifer out of arsenic that's in there. And the arsenic levels are going up. I don't see anywheres in here where that's represented. And that's a big concern. The depth of the wells. Now, my well is at 300 and some feet. The last time we checked the water level, it was 235 feet. So I've got a lot of room to go. Probably by the time that well has to be redug, I won't be here. I'll be down there with it and stuff. But we don't know for sure because there's been no definite word on how does that aquifer work and where is it being pulled from. You add more homes into the whole valley, and like you said, a moratorium on building until we can really figure out, do we have the water to support it into the future? Now, 2050, I don't worry about that. I'm not going to be here. I'm almost 80 years old now, so that's, another 25 years. If I am, I'm not going to be up here talking and stuff. So these reports like this, they're very confusing, they're very long, and to take the number of years it's taken to get to this point, I don't see why. Businesses that I was in, we developed more conclusive things than this in much less time because we had to make money. And if we took 5 years to come up with a report to tell us how to produce a movie and everything, well, we'd lose money on it. At this point, from what I understand, there's no new information going to be going into this, but they want another year to put it together. I don't think that's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
James McCallum for the record. And since I've been involved in the ranchos, I've learned a lot about water. I've learned our well 4 was declining, so we dug it deeper and got less. Digging it deeper will not always get you more water. Well 5, our most productive well, it should be great. Arsenic, can't use it. We've learned a lot from the DRI study. For example, I didn't know that if you have an earthquake fault, a well won't draw across that line. And our valley is full of little earthquake faults that affect how wells draw. In the course of the DRI study, which is more comprehensive than this study by far, we always kept saying, the more you learn, the more you want to know. And you never quite get all the information you need. The conclusion of the DRI study was kind of frightening to me, but they thought it was reassuring. They said we could have 800 more houses and we'd have water for 20 years. I don't think you represent the people by telling them they'll be out of water in 20 years. I don't think that's how you represent the people. We're on this biggest area that we have is receiving area, has somebody who's intent on building his homes. He would like to build a total of almost 2,000. At least his representatives have said that. Yet 800 and we'll be out of water in 20, not out of water, but we won't be able to serve our residents in 20 years. That's frightening. This study, like the DRI study, took longer than it was supposed to. I think we got more information out of it than this study's providing, but it still raises more questions. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the Water Master Plan, as they call it, is supposed to be due in 2029. And I think we all need more information. And we all need to look at where receiving areas are, where we're planning growth, where we're going to get the water to support that growth. And we cannot tell residents, don't worry, you got 20 years. A young family buying a house might want to live there for 20 years. It'd be nice to know that we could serve it. I'm more interested in the sustainability of our water systems than how much growth we can have. Because that's number one, is our residents now can depend on their water systems into the future. Thank you.
Ellie Waller, North County, domestic well, not Indian Hills GID, just for reference point. Thank you, Jim, for stating the report may be due 2029. That's not that far off. The peer review, as stated here, the time extension will facilitate USGS ability to obtain additional matching funds at no cost to accomplish the peer review that must be done. Have you established who's going to do the peer review, when, and how long is it going to take? Where are those matching funds going to be sought? If it's anything like the road grants, they're not guaranteed. So we have to figure out what is the end result of what we want today. the word terminate comes to mind, but you can't terminate this. The peer review needs to be done. So do we assign a definitive date for the peer review and not a year? And who is doing, is the Desert Research information at the Gardnerville level something that is incorporated, or are they part of the peer review? There's just lots of unanswered questions. Also, I'm hoping there'll be future discussions on when these numbers come out, how things play out with the already approved, not developed homes. As Jim started to, Mr. McKillop started to relate to, do we need to reevaluate what is approved based on the water levels that will be analyzed, and maybe some of those developments, you know, lose some of the units that have been approved. There has to be a better way to start looking at everything that's on the shelf in the future. And yes, at growth rates at 2% as mandated is fine, but at some point, somebody's going to come to the table and we're going to say there's not enough water. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam Crone, couple questions on the model. First is, does the modeling, correct me if I'm wrong, assume historical inflows continue at that same pace? So that's built into that scenario for the table decisions. And then the second is, in the scenario, what is the assumed percentage increase of municipal above the baseline? And can that be quantified into population growth? Thank you.
Thank you. You want to draw straws? And who goes next?
Robert Pullman, for the record. There's other studies that USGS has done for us, not on water, but on pollution. And I don't see any of that. If you want to talk about 2050, there's a very good chance that both Ruinstrath and Johnson Lane wells will not be used anymore, domestic wells. And of course, that affects, for the most part, Minden being asked to supply the water to Johnson Lane where there's domestic wells now, okay? And that isn't being taken into consideration if you want to talk about what's happening in 2050. Or maybe by 2050, Parks development will at least be half built out, and you're taking irrigation, hopefully irrigation water, and using it for the houses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Slade. On the first slide or two, it indicated that future growth was capped at 2% per year in 2011. That, of course, is an erroneous piece of data. And when you start with something like that that is clearly wrong, it gives you less confidence in the entire presentation. Sustainable Growth Initiative was in 2001. It capped growth at 2% simple, never took effect because of lawsuits. The Growth Management Ordinance took place in 2007, and it capped growth at 2% compounded. Yet there was no mention of the fact that it's had absolutely zero effect on growth in this county, principally because of the Great Recession and COVID. If there's been less growth in the first 20 years of the Growth Management Ordinance, then guess what? There's going to be more growth in the next 30 years in all likelihood. It could be more than 3% for a good part of that time. That seems to have been ignored. We hear from Ed James that there's adequate water for growth in the future, but tell that to the people in Ruinstraw and Johnson Lane when their wells start going dry, or in the ranchos, or as we like to call them, the rancheros, where, you know, the biggest community in the entire county, I believe it has something close to 12,000 people. Well, that's the only area where the water's dropping somewhat precipitously. Well, that would be pretty important to those people. The other thing that wasn't shown at all that I would have thought would be very helpful, I mean, we have, I believe, close to 7,000 homes approved but not yet built. And we know where most of them are going to be, not all of them, but most of them. We know that Buckeye Ranch, 2,200 homes, Virginia Ranch, over 1,000 homes, both on the east side of 395, which is where water issues tend to be more exaggerated. We know that there are receiving areas in the ranchos that already has problems. It would certainly seem to me like it'd be very helpful to somehow overlay where we know the growth is going to go, instead of just having random studies without, I mean, that map to me is useless because, throw in a couple of cross streets or something so we can tell. I thought that one eye on the top right there was maybe Johnson Lane, but maybe it's Airport Road. I mean, just a few little crossroads would be helpful for identifying where things are. I agree with Commissioner Tolbert and others that some vitally important information here has not been addressed. The diminishing aquifer may be in only certain areas of the county, but it seems to be in counties with domestic wells, and that's more than a little bit kind of important to the people that live there. It's an existential threat, and it's very important to people that live on domestic wells. So that seems to have been overlooked, unfortunately.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Seeing no additional public comment, I'll bring it back to the board. I believe there was several questions that were asked. I guess the first one, and I think this probably lends itself to Mr. Richter, is it was indicated that we had to shut down a domestic well in the Johnson Lane area. Is that correct?
Phil Rittger, Director of Public Works, for the record. The well he's talking about is the one off Hayborn Road. It's on the extreme edge of the Johnson Lane jurisdiction area. It's not that there was no water there. There weren't any water rights. So when the county did the intertie or the wholesale water agreement with Minden, we transferred all of the water rights out of the municipal wells that were in the Johnson Lane area over to Minden, and so those water rights exist in the Minden well. So it's more of a paper issue.
And I thought
So
we were,
anyway, so
I
the
thought
bottom
we were
line is-
correcting that. I thought we were correcting that paper issue. Am I mistaken?
We looked at that, and it's there's the well that sits there in the Hayborn, off of Hayborn Road, is now it's an operational well. It is locked out for county use only, for the road department, for obtaining water for their maintenance activities and things of that. And the reason being is it only has 2 acre-feet of water. So when we say we were over pumping that well, we exceeded the 2 acre-feet of water, which is, relative to the close to 3,000 acre-feet of water we provide into the Johnson Lane on an annual basis. It's a small fraction of that. So anyway, that was corrected with the state. There were no violations, no issues, and that's been remedied at this point. So.
Okay. Thank you. The other question I think was asked about peer review and the timing of that, and the confidence that I guess we can be assured of in regards to the acquisition of those matching funds. And I think Mr. Garner probably.
Actually, if
okay, if you want
your
to
indulgence, I'm going to ask Jenna Huntington to come up and speak to that.
And yes, we'll take a break after this particular item.
Jenna Huntington, USGS. In regards to the peer review and the funding, peer review, that happens internally to the USGS. We have scientists, one from Nevada and one from outside, that will peer review these articles. The time extension through June of 27 far exceeds the time I believe it will take to go through this process. I knew it was going to take longer than June of 26, so to stay on your fiscal years, that's why it was bumped to June 30th of 27. As far as the funding goes, the county does not need to seek grants or anything. That funding to go through peer review will come internally from USGS. We will provide that funding, so it is no cost.
Okay, so it's just a movement of paper money.
Correct.
There was discussion about adding information about domestic wells. Can that be done within the cost already?
Technically, that's outside the scope of the project. I will talk to Chris to see the level of effort that would take. The information's there. We would like to get back to you on that if possible.
So I had a question. The stuff you're doing now, the peer review and all that stuff, was that outside the scope of the original contract, or was that part of it?
No, that's part of it. We cannot publish anything without peer review.
Then I don't understand why one of your arguments for a continuance or a longer period of time is that you need to get a grant so you don't have to get the county to pay more. Why would the county pay more if you already had a contract for a certain amount?
We're not asking the county for more money. It's just that it's taking us longer, and the funds that we had were expended because I had the loss of staff.
Yeah, but that's my point. Yeah, and you didn't answer. That's my point. Is one of the reasons for the extension? I have no problem with the extension. You can only do what you can do, and you can't control people leaving. But the problem I had is you put in there for the reason for the extension was that you can get a grant and the county doesn't have to pay. No, let me finish.
Okay.
So you can get a grant and the county doesn't have to pay more money. That should never have been a consideration because the county had a contract for a certain amount type of work, and that work hasn't been done yet. But you're asking for us an extension. So that's fine. So maybe then you should consider, hey, maybe we should throw a little bit more into the county, like doing some of this well work without charging the county more money.
Phil Ritker, Director of Public Works, for the record. If there's confusion in the wording on the action item, that is on me, not on the USGS. I think one of the ways to look at this is the USGS cannot. The USGS, my understanding is, cannot appropriate funds internally within their own organization to a project where the contract has been closed. So the point of this was that by us granting the extension, it keeps that contract open so that it is eligible for their internal funding. My point was they're not coming to us asking for money. They never have. They just need to keep the contract open so that they can internally fund it.
Okay. And then the second question, I believe, was asked regarding modeling and modeling of inflows. So
The question was whether the modeling assumes historical inflow at the same pace, I believe. And it does, and we are aware that that's not realistic. It doesn't factor in potential variability and precipitation, other factors. We decided to go with that approach primarily just once you introduce a bunch of variability on the inflow, and then it just makes the analysis of the effect of the change in pumping more difficult to distill it down to something meaningful, essentially.
I mean, potentially, Chris, if we could experience some extremely wet years that are not outside the model, right? That could affect this. On the other hand, we could continue into our extreme drought issues that could also affect this to the negative, right? So,
correct.
Okay. Questions, unless you wrote down something I didn't.
I have one more.
Okay.
The question was whether the percentage increase can be quantified. It can. I actually thought about having that number prepared for today, but I don't have it, and I don't want to speculate. So.
Phil Reed, Director of Public Works, for the record. In terms of the population growth and there was a question regarding that in terms of that and how this is in the model. I'm going to go back again and reference that. This model relies on the input from the 5 largest municipal water providers in the valley in terms of their projections in terms of growth in their areas, and that's also that was carried forward from Ed James and the Carson Water Subconservancy District, their reports and their information gathering as well. So this is all consolidated information that's been looked at across the board. So when you look at the Gardnerville Ranchos area per se, I didn't produce the projected demand increase in that area. That came from their municipality, but I've got to believe that their demand increase was based on the receiving area, the homes, and the growth in their area, just like we did in our area. So when you look at what the Douglas County Water Utility projected as our growth, it's because of the build out of the North County area. It's because of the build out of Clear Creek. It's because of any of those areas that are on the books and what that would look like moving forward into 2050.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Hales?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm unclear. It seems to me like if they have good information about domestic wells, it's going to be a piece of what we need to put together for the water study, and it would be good to get that information. But I think it's premature for us we can't take any action on adding that to the contract because we don't have any information about that. So potentially today we could, I think we want to approve this because we want to keep the contract open and perhaps get more information, and we need the peer review and we need all of that. So I'm in favor of a time extension, but I would also like the county manager to explore whether there's additional useful information that would be efficiently gathered by adding on to this contract.
Okay.
And then I'm basically going to confirm from what you said that from what you were just saying about the growth being put in, an overlay of what's approved basically was included because it was provided by each of the different jurisdictions, right? So Mr. Slade's comment was it has been addressed within the model.
Okay. And I believe your request for the county manager was separate from the issue. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it won't be included in the motion. Okay. Okay. So at this time then, sensing no further questions, thank you very much for your report and your forthcoming with what information you have. I'll entertain a motion for on item 11 as presented.
I move that we approve the contract extension of time to June 30, 2027 with the thought that it may come earlier. Because I think that was represented today. Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Hales, seconded by Commissioner Tolbert to approve item number 11 as presented with the time extension to June of 2027. Sensing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes 4-0. 4 to 1 abstention, I should say, right? Because he's not here?
Absent.
1 absent. Okay, 1 absent. Yeah.
Commissioners, thank you.
Okay, I just don't want to get in trouble here, okay?
Thank you.
So, okay, I get my hand slapped enough. Okay, so anyways, with that, it's 11:50. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You have your extension. Okay? Thank you. Yes, we are no, we're not gonna break for lunch. Yes. I already told Ernie earlier in the week that we were working through lunch. So let's take what is it, do we need 10 minutes? Let's come back at 12:10. Let's come at, okay, 12:05? I'm good with 12:05. Okay, 12:05, thank you. Okay, if I could call us back to order. We have Ms. Bergens, Mr. Slade, Ms. Hales, others, please take your seats. Come on. I don't want to slam the gavel. No, I think I got weakened about a year ago. Okay. No, I know. I'm not worried about it. I don't use it. Okay, it's 12:06, so I'm going to call this back to order. We have one more action item and then presentations by us. So item number 12 for possible action, discussion to adopt resolution 2026R-010, a resolution confirming a public nuisance at 1368 Kim Place, Minden, Nevada, APN 1420-28-811-005, approving a report and account of remediation expenses and assessing a special assessment in the amount of $55,372.52 for incurred costs and fees, being presented by Mr. Ernie Strelo, our Community Development Program Manager, and accompanied by Mr. A.J. Hames from our Deputy District Attorney's Office. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Ernie Strelo. All right. Good afternoon. I'll try to get through this so you guys can have your lunch and everything. Yeah, as you said, we did a remediation up on off of Vicky Lane on Kim's Place, 1368. We did it about 4 weeks ago. We have a little movie that we came in. It's a Hollywood production, just in time for the Grammys. So, huh? Yeah. But as part of it, I just wanted to kind of there's some key tidbits that were what they pulled off the property that that costs a lot of money was they did the disposal of hazardous waste of oil, coolant, acid, batteries, and tires. We had 8 55-gallon drums of flammable liquids, 47 propane tanks. It's like we're making bombs or something up there. Four totes of oil. We had a 250-gallon tote of corrosives. Now, it's not like dynamite corrosives, but it's corrosive material. And then 250-gallon tote of aerosol cans. And then 2 boxes of unknown chemicals. We didn't know what they were. So, and then we had an auction up there getting rid of a bunch of cars too. So it was 1 acre property. So it was quite interesting. I do have a little demonstration that I can show you a drone footage of, if you're okay with that, to kind of give you a little bit of idea of what we're dealing with. So this is what they dealt with. Sorry, it's so fast. I didn't make this. So I think you're seeing a lot of the after pictures now, so you can see the difference. Nothing like a good movie, right? So,
Well, that's not even truly the beginning, right? Because there was 100, right, cars on that lot, on that property? Over 100.
Ernie Strelo, for the record, yeah, Commissioner Tolbert, you're absolutely right. There was there was an auction that we did prior to this that auctioned off a lot of the cars, and if anybody is watching that saw the auction, there was some cool cars in there, by the way. They were not, fixed up cars, but there was a 67 Mustang, some don't want you to have to recuse yourself when you do this. So, but yeah, there was a lot of stuff there that they tried to auction off and stuff like that, and the rest of it just got thrown away at that point. So.
Any additional questions? Or is that the end of your presentation? Okay. Any other additional questions? So I know that this was attached to another lot, 1372. Has that been remediated as well, or what's?
No.
No.
So yeah, you're absolutely correct. There was a lot next to it that was owned originally by, when the gentleman was alive. It was owned by him also, and it also had a lot of stuff on it. That was handled separately. It's not a county action. This is a county action.
Good. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Hales?
Not a question. I'm just amazed that it cost as little as it did, considering what was done.
And I guess that's a fair question also. Assessing a special assessment to the owners of the property for $55,372.52. What happens if the resident or the owner of that is not capable of paying us the remediation costs?
AJ Hames from the DA's office, for the record. The objective here is to assess it as an assessment on the property. So it should stay with the property as it's passed. We've already filed a document with the court, and I believe recorded it as well with our county recorder, just informing future purchasers that this is pending. And then once the tax is assessed to the property, it will run with the property. So if it's sold, so whoever obtains title will take it subject to that assessment.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, then we'll go to, this is for possible action, so we'll go to the public. Is there any public comment regarding item 12?
Jim Slade, congratulations, Mr. Strelo, for winning the Douglas County Best Short Documentary Award this year. Very highly sought after. But my only real question is, how can I get a copy of that video so that I can show my wife so she'll stop harassing me about cleaning up the garage, which actually is very clean?
Mr. Slade, what's your address? Okay. Since no other public comment, we'll bring it back to the board, and if there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 2026, yes, R-010 as presented, which does the following: confirms that the conditions at the property did constitute a public nuisance, approve the attached report and account, and assess a special assessment in the amount of $55,372.52.
Second?
Okay, motion by Commissioner Tarkanian, seconded by Commissioner Tolbert to adopt Resolution 2026R-010 as presented. Since no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. And with that, we'll go into the item number 13 for presentation only, announcements, reports, updates from county commission members, including updates on various boards and/or commissions that they may be a member of or a liaison to, or any other meetings, functions they have attended, and any requests by a commissioner for discussion of a future agenda item. Commissioner Hales, you want to start us off?
Yes. Thank you. The Carson Valley Arts Council is working on a capital campaign for private donations for the Arts Center. So anyone who's interested will probably be hearing about that as that moves forward. And I also want to note the movie theater is open and half of the net profits go to remodeling that. So every time you go to the movies, if you stay local, you help that Arts Center. There will be a public workshop March 23rd with a pizza party attached to it, and I believe that is at the Carson Valley Cinema Arts Center. I want to note that I attended the Great People, Great Places Awards ceremony a week ago or so, and it's very inspiring, the good work that's being done by many county employees in various departments, and I really enjoyed that. I would read all their names, but it's really not my place to do so here. But there is one that I want to especially note, and that is in the community development department. The folks there have been working diligently on implementing the new application for building permits. That goes live March 23rd, I understand, and it's the Opal system, also called Oracle. 2 women from that department were awarded, spotlighted specifically because they have been working very diligently, and it's very hard work. And so I want to note Colleen Thran Zapeta and Rebecca Spates, and how much we appreciate their work on that, because it really is important to our business community to have that department running well and promptly and have a better user experience. And so I'm really grateful for the work that's being done there. Carson Water Subconservancy District will be having a watershed forum upcoming, and information about that is available on the website. That's always really informative and well done. I will note just one nonprofit event that I went to. Expandable Horizons had an excellent fundraiser. It was disco. It was very groovy. If you missed it, you missed out. It was a lot of fun, and they do really good work. I also attended several committee meetings and otherwise. SSTMA, the South Shore Transportation Management Association, had its annual meeting, which is an in-person where we delve into where are we going and why, and that was a very good meeting. And that is my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Tolbert?
Yeah, I don't have much. I do want to remind everybody that it's almost spring, and that means ham bingo. It's time to do that again. So March 28th, the Kiwanis Club is hosting the ham bingo event, which is always a lot of fun, and it's at the Senior Center, Community Center this year.
Thank you. First of all, Chamber of Commerce, I missed lunch yesterday. My wife had an unfortunate accident last Saturday and broke her arm, and so that's tied me up in making sure that it gets taken care of. But in that process, I have another doctor's appointment tomorrow morning, and with the Visitors Authority meeting tomorrow morning. But Commissioner Hales has agreed to cover for me in that regard, and I appreciate that. I want to recognize that. Also, last evening at our museum on 395, we had the 3D vision of the Dust and Wonder, what's called Dust and Wonder presentation, aligning the visitors authorities from Story County, Douglas County, and Carson City in a process going forward. So that's an exciting thing that's coming forward through our visitors authorities. So trying to attract additional visitors. So And that's really all I have right now. So I do have an ACO meeting next Friday. So anyways, with that, I guess that's from the commissioners. So that's item number 13. Doesn't require any action. So at this time, then we'll go into closing public comment. You guys going to draw straws or arm wrestle, or what? You know, we have 4 people in the audience, so.
Lots of things were discussed today that were pretty important to the valley, the water being one of the highest ones. I don't think that the study from the USGS was of much help based on previous studies that have been given to us. But then again, it's the federal government. What can you say? I do think that the water from the domestic wells is a big issue, not because we're using so much of the water, but because there's a lot of expense to those wells for us. When we bought our homes, we knew that, we accepted that, and we still do. We just need to know what we have to do. I've looked at a filter system for the arsenic, about $5,000. If I drill my well deeper, I've had one quote at $20,000 and one at $25,000. Obviously, I don't want to have to do either one of them, but if I have to, I will. And I won't be coming back to the county and saying, hey, it's your responsibility to give me good, fresh drinking water, so you should pay for it. But don't offer it to anybody else, because then we'll all come after it. I was at the meeting last night for the safety of the roads. Only one of you was there, thank you, and everything. I was a little disappointed. I got there late because I had been outside working on my railroad, and all of a sudden I realized it was 4 o'clock, so I raced down there, got there. There wasn't any real presentation or question and answer. It was just boards up with the schools primarily and the traffic around the schools. I spoke to one of the individuals as I was leaving, saying that safety of the roads is important, but the condition of the roads is also extremely important to the safety of the roads. On Johnson Lane, not Johnson Lane, but on Fremont, there's an S curve just after it goes from 25, 35, then up to 45. If you hit that S curve at 45 miles an hour, it will bounce you off the side of the road. It is so bad. And the person said, well, why don't they repair it? And I says, it's not even on the list of roads to be looked at to be repaired. She said, well, who told you that? And I said, the county engineer, John Erb, said it was a dirt road, then it was turned into a grindings road and oiled several times, and that's it. So it's not even on our list of roads to be looked at to be improved. Except if you go up Johnson Lane, there's a big sign that says all southbound traffic take Fremont and across East Valley. And with the addition of all the trucks that are coming down there now from Painted Rock Mine, that road needs to be taken off the list of not looked at to being looked at and everything. So, thank you.
Good afternoon. Ellie Waller. During our brief break, I was reviewing the agenda for the March 25th joint meeting of the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources and Joint Interim Standing Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. My question here, has Douglas County been approached for data centers? This meeting, I hope to plan to attend, is going to have data center overview, data center policy trends on water, energy, and incentive policies, calculating data center water and power needs, and presentation from the rural okay, we don't need that one, grid infrastructure as related to the Public Utilities Commission as related to these data centers. I've been following it a little bit, and there are issues in towns. There was a documentary on not too long ago about these data centers going into residential, right adjacent to residential areas. The humming alone is a problem for these people. So I just want to make sure that we're starting to look at some of the issues surrounded by data centers. Also, I did inform Douglas County and sent my comments that are due to the Nevada Department of Environmental Control on an extension of groundwater discharge at the beach club. The beach club, the Tahoe Beach Club, if people here aren't aware, have had prevailing water issues on site. They were fined $50,000 back in 2008. This discharge permit extension doesn't require a hearing unless the public comes out in force. I know of 2 other comments that are being submitted before that deadline, and this also could affect the environmental impact statement for the Barton Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Slade. In opening public comment, I discussed 2 different requests for SUPs for a bed and breakfast and pointed out how different they were from each other and why one was approved and the other denied. Let's look at a similar issue. In 2021, the Gansberg Ranch on Waterloo Lane requested an SUP for a special occasion home. This was in the middle of ag land, had only 1 home within a quarter mile, and only 2 or 3 within a half mile. I supported that request. No one opposed it, and it passed unanimously. Near where I live, the Fay Canyon Ranch now is requesting the same type of SUP for a special occasion home. It was approved by the Planning Commission on February 10th by a 4-3 vote. The board will be hearing it on appeal next month. This parcel, however, has 35 homes within a quarter mile and 55 within a half mile. Local residents, without exception, and in great number, opposed the request, stating it clearly does not meet the requirement that it be compatible with the character and integrity of the adjacent neighborhoods. First concern is about noise, including amplified music for up to 12 hours a day. The second is traffic, which they believe will be hazardous and conflict with existing traffic. This area of Foothill has considerable number of bicycles, equestrians, and hikers, yet has virtually no paved shoulder. There are also numerous deer in the area, and sadly 1 or 2 are killed each year by auto accidents, which is also dangerous to cars and their residents, their occupants. The speed limit there is 55 miles an hour, which exacerbates all those concerns. The previously approved Gansberg Ranch, by comparison, has a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit and hardly any bicycles, equestrians, hikers, or deer. VHRs are prohibited in the Carson Valley, principally for one very good reason, that they are incompatible with the character and integrity of existing residential neighborhoods. Yet this request for a special occasion home would be worse than a VHR in many ways. It could have amplified music up to 12 hours a day. Instead of concerns about a handful of cars, it could be up to 130. Instead of a dozen or so people at a VHR, they could have up to 250 people. Fay Canyon Ranch, by the way, cannot be subdivided, as all the development rights were used to create Lee Allen Drive, the first clustered subdivision in the county. This is why most of the remaining land is in a conservation easement. As a capper, the request does not meet the standards to even apply for a special occasion home since it is not owner occupied. That alone should cause you to deny it. There is no viable reason why the board should ignore the concerns of so many residents just for the profit motive of one family. Does not meet, especially since it does not meet the required findings. When you hear the appeal next month, I trust you will take those concerns into account.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Address this concern expressed by, or a question expressed by Ms. Waller regarding data centers. Okay. To my knowledge, we have not had any requests come forward into our planning department for data centers. However, I can assure you, as a member of the Nevada Association of Counties and the National Association of Counties, we are following and tracking that issue very, very closely, and looking at counties that have had those data centers come into them. I know Lyon County recently had one that was approved, but we're looking at best practices and trying to get ahead of the curve on that, but put the horse before the cart so that we can, should we have that activity looked at in our county, we can ensure that we're following best practices in that regard. So, okay, trying to stay within proper open meeting law things. Okay, so with that, since there's no other, so with that, the meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you.